This video has been made possible by support from Kiwico, and I'm going to be telling you why they're awesome later on, but right now, let's get into the video. Hey everybody, Adam Savage here in my cave with a deep dive into drill bits, into drills and making holes. Making of the physical manifestation type, as a Jamie Heineman once said, is about taking large chunks of things and making them smaller in precise ways. And a drill bit is probably the most common way we do that. I know you don't think of using a drill bit as making this smaller, but you are. But we're talking about making holes, which is, again, one of the most common maker activities. And there can be a dizzying array of drill bits to utilize. And I have some favorites, but I thought I'd just give you a kind of basic overview of what I understand about drills. I'm probably not going to get all my terms correct. I'm only giving you my experience of each of these things, not an expert's opinion on them. So your most basic kind of drill is a twist drill, and this is the one you've probably encountered. This is an index full of twist drills in English sizes, and they're a pretty standard type. These are, I'm trying to remember what they're called. These are specifically short, hardened drill bits, and I use them in my mill because I can actually drill without pilot drilling all the time. But I'm getting ahead of myself already. Let's talk about how a drill bit works. A drill bit works and is a little bit of a chisel, a little bit of a hone, and a little bit of a reamer. And the structure of a drill bit is the same, of a twist drill is the same whether it's a 1/16 of an inch or an 1.5 inches. So we're going to talk about it here using this 1.5 inch Deming bit. It's very fun to show people these in the shop because about 1 in every 10 persons will say, wow, what is that used for? And I'll say, drilling big holes. Next ridiculous question. I know, it's a softball. These are called Deming bits, and yeah, they're for making large holes in hard materials. You don't ever really want to take one of these just right to a piece of metal. You want to pre-drill. You don't want to put too much energy, specifically because when you're thinking about a drill bit, the action's all happening here, out at this outer corner. In here, there's this chisel point, and it's mostly scraping. And if you think about this, if this is moving at like 1 RPM, right? This is moving a certain speed. Whatever's going on in the center is moving at a much slower speed because it's a much shallower lever arm. All that is a way of saying these drill bits can, well, let me just show you how this one operates. I've got a piece of engineering urethane here, and I'm going to drill a hole in it to demonstrate to you how the drill bit does its work. There we go. This, by the way, is a guaranteed way to get in lots of trouble, and you should be very scared of this kind of arrangement. I have seen these. I saw someone drilling a piece of 1/2 inch steel on one of Jamie Heineman's drill presses using a bit like this, and it grabbed the steel and bent this shaft at about a 20-degree angle. All of us just hit the deck. All of us like hit the floor because this thing was like vibrating the whole drill press, and it was gonna like crack and shoot a piece of hot steel across the shop. We literally like, what do you call that? We like army crawled across the floor to the plug of the drill press to take away its power. So don't do this, but I'm doing it with some engineering resin just because. I almost exclusively use these in machines, never in a handheld thing. But it will show you how the drill bit operates. So as you move slowly, you can see here, right? It's starting to make a bit of a dent, but it's not like a perfectly accurate dent, right? So if I had a pilot hole here, if I took a Sharpie and I made a hole, and then I really want to make sure I hit that hole, it's not going to be perfect. This is going to wander a bit. This is one of the limitations of a twist drill. Yeah, you can see that. But as it starts to move out, you can see that it's starting to chisel up material. And again, it's not a perfect cone. This isn't like, well, we'll get to this. So it starts to peel up material. And you can see the amount of work that it's got to do, right? Each time this edge turns around, it's like peeling up a thin slice of the material that it's cutting through. And even now, you can look at this and see that it's almost triangular rather than circular. What does this mean? This is simply, the irregularity of this hole is probably just a cautionary tale right now. Not probably, it's a cautionary tale for why you shouldn't be using these like this. You should use these in machines, but it also is a reasonable way to show you how much twist drills can move here and there. Let's see. So, yes, that's scraping. That scraping and that chiseling is a terrific primer right there for how your basic twist drill works. And to be fair, that's not that different from the very first drill bits, which were effectively a round rod with a triangle cut at the tip at a specific angle that allowed it to drill. This here is a glass drill, but it has basically the exact same structure as the earliest drills. And you can watch Chris at ClickSpring both making, filing, and utilizing these twist drills in his Antikythera mechanism, and he is able to achieve superiorly accurate hole drilling with that. Okay, now that I've given a little bit of a primer in what I understand about drill bits, let's talk about some of the various ways to make holes that are available to you. I've covered these before, unibits. They are fabulous because they can cut any size hole along the cone. These are smooth bores. I use these for probably weird applications depending on props and stuff like that. They're more commonly released like this with steps on them, and people refer to these as step drills. Each step is a different measurement, and they come in English standard and metric, and really, you should always have a set of these in your shop. These are fantastic, really, really useful. I have burned out expensive ones and cheap ones. I have in my life rarely encountered a significant difference between the super cheap and the super expensive versions of these. I'm sure there are differences, but I have not encountered them. So just go get yourself an inexpensive set of unibits. The ones at Harbor Freight are absolutely fine, in my opinion, but your results may vary. For masonry, it looks like the body of a twist drill, but masonry bits have this extra hardened chisel point out on the end. And I believe that is a brazed piece of carbide right in the end of the bit here. And again, its tip is a really good illustration of the very first drill bit design, which is, these two angles meeting under very specific rules for moving metal out of a hole. In drilling of acrylic, so one of the things that a twist drill also does is after it's peeling out, I'll use the bigger bit. After it's peeling out with this chisel point, the flutes here are pulling the material up. That's why they exist as a kind of an elevator for the material to pull it out of the hole. And this is great until it's not great. And where it's not great is if you're drilling something brittle like acrylic and you're scraping out the hole and then all of a sudden you break through and this flute now wants to go all the way into the acrylic because the first hole that it makes is like this little figure-8 hole. It's not a round hole, right? The moment this bites through the other end, now it wants to pull the drill bit in and it can shatter the hole. And this happens with a lot of brittle materials. So when you're drilling acrylic, an acrylic drill bit has been ground in a very specific way to have a different mechanical relationship with the hole. It is not chiseling out, it's more scraping out. And when it scrapes through the hole with this long, shallow angle, it actually provides a much better finish surface on the inside of the hole, and it doesn't want to pull the drill bit into it. I have in a pinch, when I needed a really specific sized acrylic hole, I have in a pinch taken one of a regular twist drill like this onto my belt sander and simply elongated its angle, and I was able to make it work. I think I pre-drilled it with another acrylic bit. Yeah, I did pre-drill it with another acrylic bit. You don't have to get this angle exact to get it to work. Now let's move on to bigger holes because most people aren't going to spend 50 bucks on a drill bit like this, and that's the cheap one. The first large hole drill bit that you probably encountered is one of these, a spade bit. And these things are both fantastic because they're really inexpensive. They've been around for like 150 years or more. They can get you in a lot of trouble because they're levered way out at the end. They don't make super accurate holes. They can wander, but you can basically see their function. They've got this chiseled triangle way out at the end that keeps it centered in the hole. And then these two outside chisels, which are flared slightly out from the body of this, are doing the carving. Now, there's no mechanism in the spade bit for pulling material out of the hole, so you're gonna have to do that yourself as you go. I don't use these very much. I find them to be sloppy. They break through wood easily. They can do a lot of damage. I don't love them, and I don't even think I have a complete set here in the cave. Now, this sharp point for centering the drill bit in the hole does have a utility in a woodworker's bit, which I think is called a brad point bit, I'm not sure. It's got this super sharpened point that allows you to get into a really nice center marked hole, and it's got these long edged flutes, which are quite sharp and well sharpened, and these woodworker bits make beautiful smoothbore holes in wood, and they go up to about this big. This is about a 1/2 inch one. So if you want to get bigger, you have to go to something else. The predecessor for these, the early predecessor, which you can still get in various applications, is this. It's called an auger bit, and this is a beautiful piece of engineering. As you can see, it uses the same spiral flutes. These are shallower, and this has a chisel way down here, nice shallow chisel angle compared to the steep chisel angle of the twist drill there. And that shallow angle means that this thing bores really nice round holes. These are great. This is an ancient one. It's got a square back for an old brace like one of these drills. I've got a couple of them around here. And this makes really nice smooth bore holes. Unfortunately, I think if you can buy these, they're quite expensive. And they're the perfect lead-in to my all-time favorite of all the drill bits, and the one that was really surprised how much it improved my life when I got it, and that is the Forstner bit, and that's what we're gonna talk about next. Summer is here, and if you are a parent, as I am, even though my kids are grown, I keenly remember summer, meaning I had to figure out a way to keep my kids occupied all summer long, and might I suggest to you, parents who are watching and children of all ages, Kiwico for some of your summer enjoyment. Now, Kiwico's entire product line is about teaching kids of all ages the concepts of creativity, innovation, problem solving, and everything to do with STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And they do a magnificent job at this. They're not just beautiful to look at, they are also really fun and a little challenging in the right ways to put together. My favorite fact about Kiwico's kits is that every single one comes with everything that you need for that kit in the box itself. There's no piece of Scotch tape you're gonna go hunting for, no pair of scissors. Everything is here. And when you teach a kid that they can take a box of parts and some instructions and end up with something that they can use, you're teaching them one of the great secrets of the world, that their point of view can bring about something in the world, and all of a sudden, they're participating in their culture. I love their mission, I love their products, and I hope you will too. And of course, there is a tested special offer for Kiwico kits. Get 50% off of your first month of any kit they sell by going to kiwico.com/tested. Happy summer, everybody. Forstner Bits. It might be peculiar to have a favorite drill bit, but these are my favorite drill bits. So many people make different Forstner Bit sets. Again, like the Unibits, I haven't found a significant difference between the cheap Forstner Bits and the expensive Forstner Bits. And the reason I haven't detected much of a difference is because I don't use them all the time. If I was doing production level work, I'd probably invest in a really high-end pair of high-end set of Forstner Bits. But because the work I do here is all very piecemeal and I might use one particular drill bit only a couple times a year, the inexpensive ones work just fine. And when young makers ask me about esoteric tools they might not normally find out about in the average hardware store walkthrough, Forstner Bits are at the top of my list. Your basic set can run you right around 30 bucks. So if you have a young maker in your life, this is a fantastic birthday or Christmas present or shop warming present. 30 bucks to go all the way from 1/4 inch up to 2 inches. And I'm here to explain that Forstner Bits go even bigger. This is the biggest one I could find. I think this is a 3 inch. Wait. No, it's 2.5. Is that 2.5? Yeah, it's 2.5. I thought I had a 3 inch somewhere. Maybe not. Okay. Why do I love Forstner Bits? How do I count the ways? Okay, let's chuck in this big bad boy and give you a demo of why I love Forstner Bits. Okay, let's get this guy out. I've never looked into who Forstner actually is. Okay, so I'm gonna drill next to the same hole I had. And you can, oh, right, and Forstner bit, let's talk about the parts of a Forstner bit before I do this. I'm getting ahead of myself. Forstner bit has this, you can see this outside machined surface, which is on a very slight taper. It tapers from the outside, from the bottom up, so it's tapers that way. And there are 2 breaks in this barrel. Some Forstner bits have teeth like this, others have just 1 or 2 big teeth, but the 2 breaks are where our chisel points are. And as you can see from this angle of attack, it is not dissimilar from the chisel action of your twist drill, but these are mounted to these very, like, you can see this piece of steel. There's a lot more support for it than across a spade bit, even though their actions are somewhat or quite similar. Plus, the fact that this is round and precisely round means that it self-centers itself in its hole. It's got this nice brad point to get yourself on your mark like that. But then once it breaks the surface, it holds itself really nice and tightly into the hole. And I'll show you a practical example of the kind of hole that it drills. There we go. Now, oh yeah. Take a look at these 2 holes. Right there, I think it's pretty obvious. You can see that this one is not perfectly round. And I told you it wasn't going to be. But look how beautifully round this is, and look at the sides. That is like, the sides of a Forstner drill bit hole are really nice and smooth. And actually, if you have a piece of like 1 inch pipe, of real true 1 inch pipe, and 1 inch tubing, and you use a 1 inch Forstner bit, those fitments together will be perfect. And I use Forstner bits like that all the time. If I have a precise radius that has to go into a material, the Forstner bit is my weapon of choice for making sure I've got a hole that is highly accurate to the piece that I am putting in it. But that is not drilling these big, like, nice smooth bore round holes is only part of what makes Forstner bits totally amazing. And I want to talk about a safety issue here. One of the worst injuries I got on my hand before I messed it up on the lathe last year, I was using a Forstner bit probably about like this, and I was drilling into a piece like this, and I had a backing piece behind it, but the Forstner bit went through the piece, through the backing piece, and carved up the inside of my index finger. Yeah, it was a dumb mistake, and you can get in a lot of trouble with these, so you want to be careful. Don't be like me. You want to be clamping your work and using these mostly with a drill press if precision is in your interest. But here is something that I truly love about Forstner bits is that they can do something that almost no other drill bit can do, which is they can drill into material when they're not completely surrounded by the material. example. What? Yeah, that basically kept itself self-centered. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that this is like a perfectly linear hole. I'd use a drill bit if I had to do this. But basically, you can kind of use one of these for doing rudimentary machining in soft materials. And I have actually, way back in the time before Mythbusters, I was teaching myself the rudiments of digital filmmaking, and it was the early part of 2002. And I bought a Sony TRV-10 Handycam. I bought a Macintosh Pismo laptop devoted to digital video editing, and I started shooting, and I started thinking about extra ways to get better shots out of my camera, so I decided to build a little handheld Steadicam, and this is the cam that I built. I had an XY table up here that held my camera for balancing, but this allowed me to do the kind of like holding on to a gimbal and not having my camera move around. And I built this entire thing using only Forstner Bits. I didn't have a milling machine at the time. That is the kind of stuff you can do with the Forstner bit, right? So I had these highly precise bearings that were, what is that, probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And I used a 2-inch Forstner bit and was able just to sock 2 of these down, plus or minus about 1 thou. I was able to use an arbor press to press these into this UHMW plastic and get a fantastic bearing surface. And now this whole thing sat beautifully on the post. I did discuss, I will tell you that this was not this device never properly worked, and it never properly worked because of one issue I had, which is because I did this on a drill press. How do I say this? Okay, if you want a gimbal like this to work, all of your lines, this line and this line, have to travel precisely through the center of the center post. If they don't, you kind of can never get this thing properly balanced and vertical. You just can't, no matter how hard you try, and I tried. That is a failing of, basically I learned a really important lesson by screwing this up, and I'm grateful for learning that lesson. But Forstner bits were how I did much of my machining in the early days of having a shop. And they, like, you see the possibility here. Like, this thing wants to stay centered. You can actually do some really interesting work with these. I've done flutes of columns using these. I've removed huge amounts of material. Actually, if I have a plastic casting and I want it to be hollow, but I can't really grab onto it, I can loosely clamp it between a couple of pieces of soft wood and use a Forstner bit to kind of just gently remove material, because you don't need a high amount of pressure for the chisel action to start working. You can actually do it at a quite low pressure. That can keep you from getting your hand all twisted up as well. And like I said, under light use conditions, I have not encountered much of a difference between the $100 set of Forstner bits and the $30 set of Forstner bits. So my advice to you is go get yourself a $30 set of Forstner bits, and if you burn one out, just buy another one of that one. If that turns out to be a common size that you love, you may notice when you use the replacement one that it's way better for you under certain circumstances, and in that case, then it's time to go buy yourself the nice $100 set. But until then, yeah, this is a great addition to any beginning maker shop or experienced makers. And this falls into the category of tools that aren't common knowledge. Everyone knows what a spade bit is. I mean, really, I feel like everybody knows what a spade bit is, but this is a bit of a mystery to most people. It's one of those tools that someone has to tell you about. So I'm telling you about it. Thank you guys for joining me for this tool tip. I'm Adam Savage, and I will see you next time. Cheers.